This is a new chapter that we are going to start. This is chapter number 12 on reflection. Here, reflection is the reflection of a point either on the x-axis or y-axis or the origin. That's what you're going to see in this chapter. Reflection either on the x-axis or y-axis or the origin. Okay. So this is part 1, day 66. Now, I have written 4 points here. Point A has coordinates 3, 5. 3 is the x coordinate or the x value and 5 is the y coordinate. So any point has a certain x coordinate and a y coordinate. So 3 here is the x coordinate and 5 is the y coordinate. Similarly, I have written 3 more points other than A. First, I am going to show you how to plot them on the graph. Okay. So we have the x-axis, this is the x-axis, and this is the y-axis. Now, on the x-axis, if you see, the meeting point of the x-axis and the y-axis, that is this, is called the origin. This point is called the origin. That's your 0. And then, this side of the x-axis, that is from here, from the origin to this one. This direction is your positive direction of the x-axis. Okay. So all values here are positive values. And this side is the negative side of the x-axis. All negative values you will see. Similarly, on the y-axis, the one above is the positive side of the y-axis and below is the negative side of the y-axis. So on the positive side I have written x. So this is the origin to x. OX is the positive side of the x-axis and OX dash is the negative side of the y-axis. Similarly, OY is the positive side of the y-axis and OY dash is the negative side of the y-axis. So, points are plotted here. Now, you are going to find these points on the graph. That is, point A has coordinates 3, 5, which means x is 3, y is 5. Okay. Since x is 3, on the x-axis, look for 3. So, 3 is here. This is x value 3 and y value is 5. Okay. So, this is 3, y value 5. Y value 5 is this one. The meeting point of both these will be the point A. Okay. So, 3 is the x value. 5 is the y value, the meeting point of both of this, that is this point. That's the meeting point of both of them. Okay. That point is A, whose coordinates are 3, 5. Similarly, let's plot point B. Point B has x value minus 4 and y value 2. Okay. So x value is minus 4. So on the x-axis, look for minus 4. This is the x-axis, minus 4 is here. That's minus 4 is the x value and y value is 2. On the y-axis, look for 2. 2 is here. Okay. So the meeting point of both these, minus 4 and 2. Okay. That point will be B, whose coordinates are minus 4 and 2. Next point C. Coordinates are 5, 0. Which means x value is 5, y value is 0. So on the x-axis, look for 5. X-axis 5 is this one. And y value is 0. Y value 0 is this. On the y-axis, 0 is here. So x value is 5, y value is 0. The meeting point of this will be at 5. That's the point. That's C, whose coordinates are 5, 0. And the last point, D, whose coordinates are 0, minus 4. Which means x value is 0, y value is minus 4. X value 0, on the x-axis 0 is this and y value is minus 4. Y value minus 4 is this. On the y-axis minus 4 is here. The meeting point of 0 and minus 4 is at minus 4. That will be point D, 0, minus 4. So this is how you will plot points on the graph. Okay. First, draw the x-axis and the y-axis, then divide these x-axis and y-axis accordingly and then start plotting. Okay. So that's about plotting. Okay. The next one. I have a point A whose coordinates are 4, 3. Now we are going to start reflecting this point. Okay. So first let's plot this point 4, 3. X value is 4, Y value is 3. Okay. So I have divided my graph accordingly. Okay. This is your x-axis and this is your y-axis. So x value is 4, y value is 3. X value 4, that's 4. X value is 4 and y value is 3. Y value 3 is here. The meeting point of both these will be at this point. That is your A. A whose coordinates are 4, 3. Now to do the reflection. As I said, in this chapter you want to see how to reflect these points either on the x-axis or y-axis or the origin. First reflection that you're going to see is reflection in the x-axis. That is keeping the x-axis as the mirror. So this is going to act as the mirror. Okay. And you're going to reflect this point on this mirror. Say you have a mirror in front of you. If you stand 1 meter away from the mirror, your reflection will be behind the mirror. That will also be at the same distance, that's 1 meter. Okay. So this is you, mirror is there. Okay. This is you, the mirror is there. You are standing 1 meter away, which means your image will be 1 meter on the other side of the mirror. Okay. So that's how you will reflect here. The x-axis is going to act as the mirror. Okay. So this is your mirror and you are so much distance away. Now how much distance away is, if this was the mirror, count this 1, 2, 3. You are 3 units away from the mirror, which means the reflection of this point will be on this side, which will also be 3 units away from the mirror. Okay. So reflection of this in this mirror x-axis will be, so 1, 2, that's 3 units. So similarly it should be 1, 2, 3 units this side. So that will be your reflection, that point. Okay. So that was the mirror. This was the actual point A. The reflection of this in this mirror is on this side. Okay. So that is your reflection. Usually the reflected point, this is point A, reflected point is always represented by a dash. Okay. So A becomes A dash. So this is coordinates of A dash. That's the reflection. Okay. Now write the coordinates of this point. For this point, first you see what is the x value. For this point, the x value is 4. So x is 4. And for this point, the y value is this, that is -3. So A dash's coordinates are 4 and -3. This is the reflection of this point on the x-axis. That's the first reflection. The second reflection is, I'm going to start again from A, but this time I'm going to reflect it on the y-axis. Now the mirror is going to be the y-axis, that is this one. Okay. This is the mirror. This is your point. You're going to reflect this in this mirror, which means the image is going to be on this side, behind the mirror. Okay. Now, how far is this point? It is 1, 2, 3, 4 units away, which means it should be 4 units away on this side. Okay. So it should be 4 units away. So let's reflect this. This is the point. You're going to reflect this in this mirror. You're going to get it on this side. Okay. And I said it is 4 units away at the same height. Okay. So 4 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that will be here. We already named one image as A dash. So you cannot name this image also as A dash. Okay. You'll have to name it differently, but the A has to be there. So the image here is A double dash. Single dash I already used here. So I'm using a different marking for this. That is A double dash is the reflected point. Now write the coordinates of this. For this point, you see what is the x value first. The x value is -4. And the y value for this is 3. So first reflection was on the x-axis. The second reflection is on the y-axis. And the third reflection is you're going to see in the origin. Origin is this one, the meeting point of both the x-axis and the y-axis. So I'm going to start again from A and reflect it in the origin. Now the origin is not a line. X-axis was a line, y-axis was a line, but the origin is just a point. That is your mirror. Okay. So this is your actual point A. You're going to reflect this in the origin. This is the mirror, which means you're going to get the image behind the mirror, which means it should be somewhere here. Okay. So when this is reflected in the origin, you're going to get it somewhere here. Okay. So the coordinates are 4, 3. It's going to be, the reflection is going to be somewhere here. Why here is the height was 3 units, which means here this depth should be 3 units. The distance from here, y-axis, to this point is 4 units, which means it should be 4 units on the other side. Okay, so that's the point. Now let's name this point. This will be A. I already used A dash, A double dash here, so this has to be A triple dash. And the coordinates of this, first check the x coordinate for this. X value is -4 and the y value for this is -3. So this is how you reflect this point on the x-axis, y-axis and the origin. Okay. After reflecting A on the x-axis, you got A dash. After reflecting A on the y-axis, you got A double dash. And after reflecting A in the origin, you got A triple dash, which is -4, -3. Okay. Now, it's not always necessary that these points have to be reflected using a graph. If the question says use a graph and reflect, then you will use a graph. Otherwise, there is a simple procedure which I will show you in the next page of how to reflect these points, okay, on the x-axis, y-axis and the origin. Okay. So, the point that we started was A, whose coordinates are 4, 3. Okay. In the first case, you reflected it on the x-axis. So look at this. This is the first point. If you reflect any point on the x-axis, okay, when a point is reflected on the x-axis, y-coordinate sign changes. Okay. Let's go back. Look at this reflection. A was a point whose coordinates are 4, 3. First you reflected on the x-axis, okay, and you got A dash, 4 -3. Now see the change. What has changed? Okay. 4 remains the same, which means x coordinate sign has not changed. But look at the y coordinate. 3 has become -3. Okay. The 3 is same. Only thing is the sign has changed. This is +3. This has become -3. Okay. So it says when a point is reflected on the x-axis, y coordinate sign changes. You are doing the reflection on the x-axis, so x coordinate sign doesn't change, but y coordinate sign changes. Okay. So A's coordinates were 4, 3 when it is reflected on the x-axis. Now what is this mx? M stands for, capital M stands for mirror, and a suffix x says that it is reflected on the x-axis. The mirror is the x-axis. This is how you represent. Mx means the mirror is the x-axis. So point A, when it is reflected on the x-axis, you get A becomes A dash, and according to this, the change is the sign of y will change. Okay? That is 4 will remain 4, 3 becomes -3. Okay. Then second one. When you do reflection on the y-axis, okay, let's go back. This was our point, and we reflected on the y-axis. This was the reflection. Okay. This is the image that you get. Okay. This was the object, this is the image, and this is the mirror, the y-axis. Now see the change. 4, 3 became -4, 3. 4 has become -4, which means the x coordinate sign has changed, and 3 remains the same. That is, y coordinate sign doesn't change. That is when you're reflecting on the y-axis. So, reflection on the y-axis is when a point is reflected on the y-axis, x coordinate sign changes. When you reflect on the x-axis, y coordinate sign changes, and when you reflect on the y-axis, x coordinate sign changes. That is, A, whose coordinates are 4, 3, is reflected in the mirror y-axis. My stands for mirror is the y-axis, and the change is x coordinate sign should change. So A becomes A double dash, because A dash I've already used here. So this is A double dash. X coordinate sign should change, which means 4 becomes -4 and 3 remains the same. Okay. So that's the second reflection. And the third one, we reflected A in the origin and we got A triple dash. Look at the change. 4, 3 has become -4, -3. 4 has become -4, sign has changed. 3 has become -3, that sign also has changed. When you reflect on the x-axis, only y coordinate sign changes. When you reflect in the y-axis, x coordinate sign changes. And when you reflect in the origin, both the signs will change. Okay. So, the third one is reflection in the origin. When a point is reflected in the origin, both x and y coordinates signs change. Both the signs should change. So, you have A whose coordinates are 4, 3. It is reflected in the mirror O, means mirror is the origin. Then A becomes A triple dash. Both signs should change. 4 has become -4 and 3 has become -3. So, this is normal reflection with no graph. Okay. So, you have to know that when you reflect any point on the x-axis, y coordinate sign will change. When you reflect any point on the y-axis, x coordinate sign will change. And when you reflect any point in the origin, both the signs will change. I've shown you a question here. This is from exercise 12, question number 10. A triangle ABC where A's coordinates are -1, 2, B's coordinates are -4, 8, and C's coordinates are -6, 8. 3 points are there. A, B, C is reflected through the origin. So A, B, and C all are reflected in the origin. To triangle A1, B1, C1. You start with A, B, C. When you reflect in the origin, it changes to A1, B1, C1. So first get A1, B1, C1 on reflection in the origin. Then triangle A1, B1, C1 is then reflected in the x-axis to triangle A2, B2, C2. First you start with ABC, you reflect it in the origin, you get A1, B1, C1. Again, you start with A1, B1, C1 and reflect in the x-axis to get A2, B2, C2. Write down the coordinates of A2, B2 and C2. And there is a last part of the question which says write down a single transformation. I'll tell you about this later. First let's do the reflection. Okay. We have to start with A, B and C. I'm going to start with A first. Okay. A, whose coordinates are -1, 2, first is reflected in the origin. So I put an arrow and on top of the arrow I've written MO, means the mirror is the origin. A becomes A1. When you reflect any point in the origin, both the signs will change, which means -1 will become 1, 2 becomes -2. Both signs have changed. Okay. And here it says A1, B1, C1 is then reflected in the x-axis. This is A1. This is then reflected in the x-axis. So I continue the reflection here itself. I have put an arrow. A1 I'm going to reflect on the x-axis, that's MX, mirror is the x-axis. A1 becomes A2. When you reflect any point on the x-axis, y coordinate sign will change. So this sign will change. This will not change. So 1 remains same, -2 becomes 2. Do the same thing with B and C. B's coordinates are these. First it is reflected in the origin, that's MO. B becomes B1. If you reflect any point in the origin, both signs will change. That is -4 becomes 4, 8 becomes -8. And then you continue reflection on the x-axis, that's MX. B1 becomes B2. When you reflect any point on the x-axis, y coordinate sign will change. So 4 remains same, minus 8 becomes 8. And starting with C. C's coordinates are these. First it is reflected in the origin. C becomes C1. Because it's reflected in the origin, both signs will change. This will become 6 and this will become minus 8. And if you continue reflecting on the x-axis, y coordinate sign will change. That 6 remains same, minus 8 becomes 8, that is point C2. Question was, write down the coordinates of A2, B2, C2, A2, B2, C2. All three are here. And the last part is, write down a single transformation. See here, we have done 2 reflections here. First you reflected in the origin and then you reflected on the x-axis. The question here is, write a single transformation, means what is the single reflection that will change your original point to the final point. So which sort of reflection will change A, whose coordinates are minus 1, 2, to A2, which is 1, 2. No 2 reflections, single reflection here to say. What will change this? What will change this to this one? Okay. So look at the change. Minus 1 has become 1, means sign of x has changed, and 2 is the same. So no change of the y coordinate, only x coordinate sign has changed. Now when does x coordinate sign change? Is when you reflect a point on the y-axis. So the single transformation or the single reflection is reflection on the y-axis because x coordinate sign alone has changed. Therefore, the single transformation is reflection on the y-axis. Okay. Your homework for today is exercise 12, question number 1. And in question number 1, if you see the last part, it says find distance L dash N dash. There is no need for you to find that distance L dash N dash. You can leave that part and do the rest. And in question number 2, it says line y is equal to 0. It is reflected in the line y is equal to 0. Line y is equal to 0 is the equation of the x-axis. So wherever you come across y is equal to 0, y is equal to 0 means it is the x-axis. And if you come across x is equal to 0, which means that is the y-axis. These 2 things you have to know. That is, line y is equal to 0 means the x-axis. Line x is equal to 0 means the y-axis.